Hello and welcome back to round 2 of the 2022 Bilbao Special Event. My name is Jamie Boyd and I have the pleasure of being joined by Lou Cromie.
Hello, Jamie. It's amazing to be behind the desk once again with yourself and at such an amazing event.
Yeah, it's a great event so far. We had a fantastic round 1 coming out. Eric Rios still showing his dominance there, taking that first game. But we do have another fantastic game between two players who are no strangers to the regional level events. We do have a regional champion versus a regional finalist here in Hyppolite Bernard versus Alex Soto.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to seeing how these two players go up against each other. And if you take a look at the plushies that they've got on the desk, that we might be in for a surprise.
I'm hoping we see a Gigantamax Eevee come out at some point. Maybe it will be at some point in this tournament. But yeah, you can see Alex Soto there was able to come in runner-up place in the Bochum Regional Championships that we had back in the 2020 regional formats. So very strong showing coming out here for Alex, and I'm sure he wants to be doing another very strong showing.
Yes, exactly. I'm looking forward to seeing how his Pokemon are going to fare down against the Pokemon choices for Hyppolite here. And you can see some amazing achievements as well. Back in 2020, Cologne regional champion, so has been able to get to that top place finish at a regional level event. And in 2019 was able to get into that top 32 world's positioning as well. So again, players who are no stranger to these kind of high achieving places. They're going to understand that pressure, and coming into round 2 with one win behind you, you've just got to kind of go full steam ahead and keep trying to rack up those wins.
Yeah, you want to keep that momentum going. You've got that initial win, so you want to keep going with that. So you can see the two players now with their teams. Both players are going to be running that Zacian and Kyogre core. Very similar teams coming out for both players, but there is that pesky Shedinja that Hyppolite does have that he did use to win that regional championships back in 2019.
Yeah, if those eagle-eyed viewers of ours will have spotted that plushie that is sitting right next to Hyppolite, and it's, you know, his partner Pokemon, and it's certainly going to be making probably a little bit of a splash here in Bilbao. But some really interesting combinations coming out here. Like we mentioned, we've got both the Kyogres there, so Rain is going to be the dominant force on the battlefield. But nice to see as well some of the alternative choices. If you're Kyogre, you're going to have to really worry about the Rillaboom on the opposing side of the field, and then as well, those Thunderuses are certainly going to be formidable too.
Yeah, they definitely can be, but we're not seeing a Thundurus come out for Hyppolite, at least at the start. We are going to be seeing it come out for Alex's side of the field, though. It's going to be Incineroar and Thundurus coming out for Alex, and Zacian and Kyogre for Hyppolite. So just going immediately on the offensive with both of your restricted Pokemon for Hyppolite. The Kyogre is probably not in the greatest position against the opposing Thundurus, assuming it is going to be that Defiant Thundurus that does want to be going for those Max Lightnings. You get the Intimidate down onto the opposing Zacian as well, so the Behemoth Blades won't be doing as much damage into the opposing Thundurus as well. So a very nice position for Alex already with that Thundurus, able to just very comfortably go for the Dynamax if he chooses to do so, whether that's get an Airstream to put himself faster than the Zacian or get that Max Lightning into the opposing Kyogre to do some massive damage.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love this lead by Alex. Gives him really strong positioning going forward. The Thundurus able to apply a lot of pressure, like you said, with either a Max Airstream or a Max Lightning, so really is on the offensive straight out the blocks here. With the Incineroar as well, being able to throw down that Intimidate just is going to put Zacian in a bit of a difficult position. With your Zacian, you always want to make sure it's got that +1 boost, so being able to kind of negate some of the offensive pressure that Hyppolite has puts Alex in a really strong position.
Yeah, you get to very safely go for the fake out into the opposing Zacian as well. That would keep the Thundurus safe from any of the Behemoth Blades, and then you just get to launch your Max Lightning into the opposing Kyogre here, and that does seem to be at least what Alex is potentially going for with the Dynamax there of that Thundurus. So going to be able to do the massive damage, get the Airstream boost going as well. Does have to be wary of something like the Shedinja that is waiting in the back, but at least not this turn. You are able to get off the attack with the Thundurus pretty safely.
Yeah, no surprises to see that Dynamax happen on the Thundurus, but there's also one on the opposing side for Hyppolite, going to be able to throw up a Dynamax and get that double HP stat as long as you've used your Dynamax candies, Jamie, to be able to kind of have that longevity out on the field. There's going to be that Kyogre.
Yeah, and so that's going to be able to most likely survive a Max Lightning coming out from the opposing Thundurus here. Even if it is going to be the physical variety and hitting on the weaker defenses, that Dynamax should allow it to be able to survive that attack.
Yes, and Zacian going to go for the Behemoth Blade. Speediest thing out here on the field. Even at neutral, still going to be able to deal some decent damage, particularly when it goes down into a Dynamax Pokemon. Going to be taking Thundurus just below 50% HP remaining, so another one of those Thundurus does certainly not want to take. Thundurus is going to go for the Max Lightning, though, down into the opposing Kyogre. Does a huge chunk of damage, but Kyogre is able to survive. The Electric Terrain gets set up on the field as well, so there won't be any sleepy times at any point while the grounded Pokemon are on the field. But the key thing here is that big damage against that Kyogre. It puts it in a really vulnerable position going forward. As it did survive, it can go for this Max Geyser, though, using the Rain to boost up the power of this move into the Thundurus, and the double targeting by Hyppolite just removes such a formidable threat against his team, and also leaves Alex without the Dynamax Pokemon very early on in this game one.
Yeah, it did seem like Thundurus was in a great position in that first turn. but it's gone and only used one turn of Dynamax, and Incineroar's able to passing shots itself out into the Zacian and get the Intimidate and the Fake Out pressure back on the field once again. So at least the Kyogre is very low and going to be in range of whatever attack Alex would choose to go for at this point. But you do take care of the Dynamax Pokemon turn 1 on Alex's side of the field. So a very good Dynamax coming out from the Kyogre. You saw how much damage it took from that Life Orb Max Lightning. That's the second Life Orb Thunderous that we've seen on stream already going into this second round. So that might be picking up in popularity. Then you can see why that was absolutely massive damage into the opposing Kyogre, and it definitely did need to go for the Dynamax to be able to survive that attack. And now you just get to pivot into your own Zacian on Alex's side of the field. You could potentially bring the Incineroar back in to get the Intimidate and the Fake Out pressure back onto the opposing Zacian as well. If you bring in the Incineroar, you get to go for Fake Out in Zacian and Behemoth Blade into the Kyogre, and there's no real way around that for Hyppolite's side of the field. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that Incineroar come back in.
Yeah, Incineroar having the Fake Out pressure on that previous turn, you know, obviously going for the parting shot instead. We see it quite a lot just to be able to allow the trainer to be able to pivot Pokemon in and out of the battlefield. But possibly the Fake Out into the previous Behemoth Blade might have given Thunderous an opportunity to go again on the next turn, particularly if maybe it had been a max Airstream and get that speed up. But nonetheless, still a decent position here for Alex. Like you said, you've got the Incineroar there that can now apply that Fake Out pressure to the Zacian in this particular turn, leaving the Zacian on Alex's side free to pick up a KO against that Kyogre. But if there's something like a Max Guard, you might want to use the opportunity with a Fake Out on the opposing Zacian to deal some good damage while you've got that opportunity.
Yeah, you definitely could be going for that, and so that you've reduced the damage output of the Zacian on Hyppolite's side of the field pretty nicely here, because it's taken 2 Intimidates and a parting shot, so it's down to -2 at this point, and not going to be doing too much damage at all. So you may even just ignore the Zacian at this point. You get to very safely go for Behemoth Blade into that Kyogre. There's no speed control on Hyppolite's side of the field, so you will always be able to hit that attack unless it does go for a Max Guard or a Switch Out. But you can maybe just go for another parting shot with the Incineroar at this point if you wanted to, and just reset that Intimidate once again, especially because the Zacian is switching out. So if a Fake Out was launched off into that opposing Zacian, that would have been a wasted Fake Out. So we'll have to see if there's going to be a Fake Out coming here, just to guarantee that there is no damage coming out on Alex's side of the field, or if he is going to reposition once again.
Yeah, super nice switch here by Hyppolite. That Zacian wasn't having a good time at all. And Zacian on Alex's side can capitalize on this switch, going for the substitute. Kyogre is going to go for a Nullamax Geyser though, while in the rain. Why not? It's going to deal some good damage, particularly if it goes down into that Incineroar. Again, we didn't see a Fake Out come out here, Jamie, so Incineroar will go down with a one-hit KO from that powerful Kyogre, and Alex down 2 Pokemon in as many turns in this game 1.
Yeah, very interesting decision. Go for the substitute there with the Zacian. It was a free knockout on the opposing Kyogre, and you did need to take that knockout to allow your Incineroar to be able to survive. So going for the substitute, it keeps the Zacian safe, but it did take the Intimidate before that substitute was set up. At least you can't be faked out by the opposing Incineroar anymore, but you did sacrifice your own Incineroar to be able to get into that position, and we'll have to see if that is going to be the correct play, because if something like the Shedinja is waiting in the back, then that could be all the Pokemon taken care of that could deal with it. So on Alex's side of the field, if you're down to your Kyogre and your Zacian, you won't be able to hit that at all. So the Incineroar being taken care of by the Max Geyser here could be very crucial. So we'll have to see what Pokemon is waiting in the back for Hyppolite.
Well, there we finally got a Fake Out going down into the Kyogre on Alex's side as the Zacian jumps out from behind the substitute and goes for the Behemoth Blade. Going to be able to jump up and find its mark down onto that Kyogre, finally removing it from the battlefield, and Hyppolite will lose his first Pokemon here in this game. Whether it's going to be the Zacian coming back through to apply some pressure to try and maybe remove the substitute from Alex's Zacian there, or whether that whether the Shedinja, like you mentioned, is going to come in. I think you've pointed out something really good here, Jamie, where Hyppolite's, if the Shedinja is in the back, is just trying to remove the Pokemon that can apply pressure to it and just allowing Shedinja to have that potential endgame.
Yeah, that's how you play the Shedinja, right? You want to get rid of the Pokemon that can take care of it, and then you effectively have won the game outside of the timer. So the Zacian is going to be coming back in for Hyppolite's side of the field. If you do have that Shedinja waiting in the back, then you may not need to reveal it. If you can try and win the game with the Zacian and the Incineroar only, then you might as well go for that, because if you do have the Shedinja waiting in the back, you have effectively won the game. You don't need to reveal it yet to be able to show that you've won the game. So try and win the game with the Zacian and Incineroar to try and not reveal that fourth Pokemon.
Well, defensive plays from the Kyogre here, just going for the protect, as Zacian goes for another powerful Behemoth Blade. Going to be finding its mark down onto the opposing Zacian here, that's able to come back in for Hyppolite without having to have taken all of those attack drops, but it doesn't quite do sort of the 2-hit KO there. Play Rough going to go down into the protect, so Kyogre just staying nice and safe here, as Throat Chop is revealed from that imposing Incineroar. Not a move we see very often, but it's been rising in popularity over the past couple of events.
Yeah, you've seen Darkest Lariat previously on Incineroars, but Throat Chop is a very nice option, especially into opposing Incineroars, to be able to get to put a stop to the parting shots that can come out from the opposing Incineroars. If you've got a faster Incineroar, you get to Throat Chop them and then they can't switch out. But it's still doing very nice damage. And the double up of the Play Rough and the Throat Chop would have most likely been able to pick up the KO on that opposing Kyogre. But a very nice protect there, getting some extra damage into the opposing Zacian. But you can see with the Intimidate that was previously set on the Zacian on Alex's side of the field, it is not able to knock out that opposing Zacian on the Hyppolite side of the field in 2 shots. So you still need to be going for another attack to be able to KO it to that point. You'd probably be able to get it off with the Kyogre, but it's just going for another double protect here, and it's not able to get it, unfortunately.
Yeah, Kyogre not able to get the double as Zacian goes for another Behemoth Blade here. So all the offensive pressure from Alex's side coming out from this Zacian. Being able to move first here, not pick up the KO against it, unfortunately. So I've got only 11 hit points remaining on Hyppolite's side, so it can retaliate with a Play Rough. This time not going into a Protect and picks up the KO against the Kyogre. So much damage coming out from that Play Rough, leaving just the Zacian on Alex's side in this game 1. Throat Chop going to connect. Not very effective, and no substitute break. But when you look at the Pokemon advantage that Hyppolite has got, Zacian's going to have a really tricky time to try and pull this back for Alex.
Yeah, it definitely is. At least the opposing Zacian is in range of an attack and would be able to be easily KO'd by the Zacian at this point. But it's 3v1 at this point as well. You need to be able to break the substitutes at least for Hyppolite's side of the field. Maybe even just go for a parting shot and ignore the substitute completely because of the sound-based typing of the parting shot. Going to be able to ignore that. But just to protect for the Zacian at this point, try and stall out a couple of turns. You at least catch the Zacian and protect on Hyppolite's side of the field.
Yes, just gets the Protect up there as Incineroar goes for the Flare Blitz into a Protect as well. So Incineroar the only one really trying to shake and move on this particular turn, but not to any potential damage. But like you said there, Jamie, the Zacian can really not do too much on Alex's side. It really is an information game at this point, whether you can try and see what the 4th Pokemon would be for Hyppolite. Going to be the Behemoth Blade once again coming out from Alex's Zacian down into the opposing one. Does manage to pick up that KO, so we will be able to see that information, and that could at least allow Alex some insight into how Hyppolite decided to approach this game, what the Pokemon choices were, and that information can be critical when you try to read the player going into game 2.
Yeah, and all 3 of the Pokemon waiting in the back are entirely viable into this matchup. Thundurus and Kartana both do very well against opposing Kyogre, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see any of the 3 Pokemon revealed in the back for Hyppolite, and you weren't able to win this game with just the Incineroar on the Zacian, so you do at least have to reveal that. At least that's going to be good information for Alex going forward, and yeah, that is that Shedinja. It makes a lot of sense to bring Shedinja to a matchup against an opposing Zacian and Kyogre, because unless they are running very unconventional movesets, the classic Zacians and Kyogres can't hit Shedinja at all, so it is a very strong Pokemon coming into these matchups because it effectively makes the 2 restricted Pokemon in the opposing side useless. And you can see here, the game is effectively over at this point because the Shedinja can't be touched by this Zacian.
Yeah, exactly. All Alex can really do here is try and kind of scout out what the move pool might be on that Shedinja. We see Shadow Sneak already. Again, a Pokemon choice, move choice on that Pokemon that's been really popular. Just able to get that little bit of damage, that little bit of priority, possibly to finish up a KO here or there, and also apply threats to opposing Shedinjas.
Yeah, and there's still maybe a way back if you can stall out the timer enough, because the Shedinja has only 1 HP, so it's still taking a reasonable amount of chip damage from the Shadow Sneak. If you do carry something like a Poltergeist, then that is shaky accuracy. Shadow Sneak is guaranteed damage. If you got a critical hit with the Sacred Sword, that could have been a way back, but the Incineroar was able to survive, fire off that Flare Blitz, and take the first game for Hyppolite.
Yep, Hyppolite takes game 1 here. It's Swiss round 2 at the Bilbao Special Event, so we'll be moving into our game 2, and if you're Alex now, you've got to find a way to be able to adapt around this. He took some very big KOs very early on in this game, and I think if you're Alex going into game 2, you need to make sure you're preserving those Pokemon a little bit better, particularly your Dynamax Pokemon.
Yeah, you brought, I think it was 2 Pokemon that could hit the Shedinja in that Thundurus and the Incineroar, and they got KO'd very early on. So even though we didn't see the Shedinja hit the fields for most of the game was already over at that point. We just had to wait and see that the game was over. So you do need to be preserving your Pokemon that can hit the Shedinja much more effectively. There are a couple of other Pokemon on Alex's side of the field. There is that Rillaboom that can technically hit the Shedinja. If you go for the Dynamax, and Drum Solo can hit through that Wonder Guard. So you do need to be maybe considering that as an option, because that is also very strong against opposing Kyogre, because it can hit it super effectively, of course. So that could be a potential switch up. If you do bring both your restricted Pokemon in the Zacian and the Kyogre, that's committing to the other 2 having to deal with Shedinja. So maybe you do drop 1 to have 3 options to deal with Shedinja, because you've got to be able to beat it somehow.
Oh, yeah. And as well, you need to be able to figure out what the item choice is on that Shedinja, whether it's the safety goggles or the focus sash, because that can be really sort of detrimental to how you can KO, because a lot of our players like to set up that residual weather, something like a hail. But if you've got the safety goggles, that's not going to be very effective. But again, with the focus sash, that gives it the extra longevity on the field. Maybe has to take 2 Shadow Sneaks in order to be KO'd, and not having that information can make it a bit difficult for our players to be able to think, do I need to set up hail? Do I need to set up some kind of residual damage here? But I liked your Rillaboom idea there, cutting through onto the ability, and that's something that we haven't really seen a lot of. And if our players can, make that observation and make that adjustment, it could be a slightly different game, but you have to make sure you have an answer to Shedinja.
Yeah, and if you're facing down opposing Shedinja is like the key thing, preserving your Pokemon and finding those unconventional options. Like you mentioned, the Hail that could be set up by the Kyogre going for a max Hailstorm. That could be an option as well. So there are still Pokemon that can deal with the Shedinja, even though they don't have super effective moves against the Shedinja. So Rillaboom and Kyogre can technically deal with it. So you do need to be mindful of that. The Thundurus can definitely hit it if it goes for max Airstream, but if you go for the Thundurus Dynamax straight away and lose it straight away on that turn 1, like you did, and then that's one option taken care of straight away. So maybe the Thundurus might need to sit on the bench because you want to be going maybe for a Dynamax with the Rillaboom or the Kyogre as well, because if you're going for Thundurus and not Dynamaxing, Fly would have to jump up and then come back down on the second turn, and you can just endure on that turn.
Yeah, that's really true. Endure has been such a popular move choice on Shedinja in this season currently. Not something I've really seen before when Shedinja has been a pivotal Pokemon, but it's definitely risen in popularity, like you said. So for those two-turn moves that we see quite a lot with Landorus or Thundurus, then you are able to just survive out that move and, again, just stall out a game. And it's why Shedinja is such a pesky Pokemon to deal with.
Yeah, the key thing about the Endure over the Protect is it can survive the max move without the Focus Sash being broken. And in previous formats, if you protected, you could be something like this, the status moves that could still get through it, but Endure is able to survive that max move. The Protect would still break the Focus Sash, which is the key thing going into these formats with the Endure. But there's going to be a Whimsicott coming out for Alex's side of the field, so an interesting switch up there. Still sticking with the Thundurus, though, against the Kyogre and the Zacian.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the Whimsicott switch in here just for that kind of speed control option, having something like a Tailwind just be able to boost up the speed on Alex's side of the field, outspeed that Zacian going forward, and it might allow the Thundurus to still be able to go for those max lightnings, apply a lot of pressure to the Kyogre. But once again, that Thundurus is in a very dangerous position. If Hyppolite wants to go for the double up into it, particularly considering the Zacian hasn't been intimidated at this point, then Thundurus is going to go right back into his Pokeball very early on.
Yeah, and we've seen that the Kyogre was able to survive. Maybe something like a Helping Hand, or even just a double up with a Moonblaster and Energy Ball as well could do that extra bit of damage to be able to KO that Kyogre. Because the Zacian can't KO either the Whimsicott or the Thundurus in one shot, assuming it is going to be the Focus Sash on the Whimsicott. If it's not the Focus Sash variety, the Zacian would be able to pick up the KO. But if a Max Lightning was launched off into that Kyogre, then that's not going to be doing much damage at all.
Oh, you can see from Alex's reaction as well, that may very well be the case. Shedinja coming in, Hyppolite deciding that Alex is going to go for a similar strategy, and that Helping Hand suggestion you made there, Jamie, could certainly be what Alex would need to pick up the KO against that Kyogre. Yes, you might still, have to take a big amount of damage from the Zacian, but it could be what Alex needs to just remove the Kyogre and then make an easier game for himself. But with Shedinja on the battlefield, all your plans kind of go out the window. The Helping Hand has come up, helping out the Thundurus, but Whimsicott can want to help all it can. If it goes down into that opposing Shedinja with a Max Lightning, it's not going to be doing anything. Zacian is going to go for the Behemoth Blade into the Thundurus. You can see it does a significant chunk of damage, particularly as it hasn't been intimidated. And it is the Max Lightning, Jamie, not a Max Airstream here. Brilliant switch by Hyppolite.
Yeah, that's what you want to see when you're a Shedinja player. Switch in on a max move and completely waste it. If that was a max Airstream, that would have been able to at least break the Focus Sash if it does have that, and would have still been able to do some very reasonable damage to the Kyogre, but wouldn't have been able to pick up the KOs. The Helping Hand Airstream would probably KO just a regular Kyogre, but if it did go for the Dynamax, then you would have needed that Lightning, and that's why Alex clearly went for the Lightning, to be able to try and KO that Dynamax Kyogre, as Hyppolite went for in that game 1, but the very, very nice switch up into that Shedinja. One turn of Dynamax wasted. You can at least get an Airstream into the Shedinja now with the Thundurus, and you can go for the Tailwind with the Whimsicott to allow your Thundurus to be able to speed in the Zacian before that Behemoth Blade can switch off, but an Intimidate will work just as well, I think.
Yeah, nice to bring in the Incineroar. Whimsicott really isn't doing too much here at this point. Yes, you can get the Tailwind up, but what you really need to be doing is dealing with the Pokemon on Hyppolite's side. Thundurus going for the Max Guard, I think quite wise, considering one more Behemoth Blade is going to be able to KO it, but you can see Hyppolite nodding here. The Sacred Sword goes down into the Incineroar switch in. Great call here, knowing the Incineroar was going to jump into action. Will activate the Berry on the Incineroar. It's going to get a little bit of a snack to regain a little bit of HP using its Citrus Berry, as Shedinja goes for the Poltergeist. Goes into the Max Guard, but I think Hyppolite is playing so well here, calling every single play that Alex is doing and just throwing it on its head.
Very, very nice Sacred Sword, catching that Incineroar. If you do go for the Sacred Sword and the Whimsicott, that's still fine, because you've broken a Focus Sash that could be on the Whimsicott as well. And if it stays in, all it's doing is going for a Tailwind, and that would just have allowed the Thundurus to be able to outspeed the Zacian and get its Airstream off before the Zacian would gone for a Behemoth Blade. But then you're still not of being able to KO the Shedinja, assuming it is going to be the Focus Sash variety. So a very nice catch of the Incineroar on the switch in. Going to be doing some good damage there. And now you can just protect on the fake outs and maybe even preserve your Shedinja at this point. You've seen the two Pokemon that are going to be able to deal with this opposing Shedinja, because you've got the Rillaboom, Zacian and Kyogre waiting in the back as the fourth Pokemon. Neither of them can hit the Shedinja, so you've only got the two Pokemon that can deal with Shedinja on the field at the moment.
Yeah, so Shedinja, I think, listening to your words there, Jamie, goes for the Endure, doesn't want to have to take a max Airstream here. Zacian's going to flinch due to the fake out on the Incineroar, as Thundurus does indeed go for that max Airstream, so it will connect down onto the Shedinja, but Shedinja's going to be able to endure that and not be KO'd in this turn. And this is where Shedinja really does become such a problem Pokemon, because you might have the move that can technically hit it, but if you can't deal the damage, and it's only one hit point you need to do. It's so frustrating when you cannot just do that damage against it. And particularly when it's sat next to a Zacian that can apply great pressure. That Sacred Sword can keep chipping away at the Incineroar. Anything really into that Thundurus is going to remove it at this point. So having that offensive pressure next to the Shedinja makes for a very happy Shedinja and a happy Shedinja player.
Yeah, it's very happy at this point, because now the Airstreamer's potential for Thundurus is gone as well. It was able to endure that hit, and you saw the interaction of why Endure is used over Protect. The Focus Sash, if it's there on the Shedinja, was not broken, and it would have been if it went for Protect. So now Thundurus has to go for Fly to be able to hit this Shedinja, assuming it doesn't have any other coverage moves, especially because it's Life Orb. It doesn't tend to carry that coverage, and maybe the Dark type attacks coming out. So probably only Fly to be able to hit the Shedinja. Now, probably down to the Incineroar to be able to take care of it, and it's already taken some reasonable chip. There is a full HP Kyogre waiting in the back that can deal with the Incineroar as well. Alex has to preserve this Incineroar to be able to KO this Shedinja now, and that's probably why he's switching it out.
Yeah, you're right. If you're Alex, you need to deal with that Kyogre that's in the back, or is it returned? No, it's still hiding in the back. Incineroar's going to join for Hyppolite instead, switching in for that Shedinja. Because like you said, the Incineroar is going to be such a critical Pokemon for Alex now, knowing that Shedinja is on Hyppolite's side, and you have to get rid of the Kyogre because it's just going to be able to do so much. Defiant activating as well on the Thundurus, going to get a cheeky attack boost as well due to the Intimidate of that Incineroar switching in. But Thundurus just going to go for a Protect here, wants to hang out on the field as long as possible, and also allows Zacian to keep going for these Behemoth Blades, not dealing any damage, and allow that Whimsicott to switch in unscathed.
Yeah, so it's going to be able to do all the shenanigans it wants to do here, but those shenanigans aren't going to be too impactful here. At least you can go for something like a Tailwind to boost yourself faster, and maybe your Incineroar is going to be put faster than the opposing Zacian at that point, because the Incineroar has become a very crucial Pokemon for Alex at this point, because it needs to be able to be the Pokemon to deal with the Shedinja. So you've got a Defiant boost on the Thundurus, so that would be able to do some good damage to the opposing Zacian with a Wild Charge now. But you've got the Incineroar switching in that can just go for a Fake Out into the Thundurus and put a stop to that. So it's still a very, very awkward position for Alex, because even if you have to reposition around all this switching and the Fake Outs that are coming out from the Incineroar, you still have to be mindful of the Shedinja. So you can't lose all the Pokemon before your Incineroar hits the field, because you need that Pokemon to be able to hit the Shedinja, especially because Zacian is your final Pokemon. That's not going to be able to deal with the Shedinja at all.
Yeah, the ball positioning here is critical at this point of the game for Alex, needing to preserve those Pokemon. Incineroar's going to go for the Fake Out into the Whimsicott, break a potential Focus Sash on that Pokemon, as Zacian goes for the Behemoth Blade. Going to be firing up and connecting down into the Whimsicott. So doing the double up there, breaking potato Focus Sash, going for the Behemoth Blade just allows Hyppolite to remove Alex's Pokemon again, starting to whittle down the Pokemon options that Alex has got. If you take down another Pokemon, then both those Pokemon that can get against the Shedinja are going to be exposed and just going to be there to be able to be KO'd. Yeah. I wonder how many times we said Shedinja in this game, Jamie.
Yeah, it's been the main Pokemon at this point. All it's done is just Shadow Sneak a couple of times and endure one of the max moves, but that it's
terrifying.
Yes, and it's just its mere presence that completely switches up the way you have to play the game. Normally, it's just you try and knock out the opposing 4 Pokemon, but when the Shedinja is on the opposing side of the field, you have to add in that extra layer of I have to keep these Pokemon to be able to KO the Shedinja. So now it is just down to the opposing Incineroar. At least it's come in to intimidate the Zacian, so it'll probably be able to survive a Sacred Sword coming out from it, because we saw that's the damage that was previously on the Incineroar after the Sacred Sword, so it would be able to survive another one. But it's still very awkward to be able to deal with all the Pokemon on Hyppolite's side of the field. There's still a full HP Kyogre waiting in the back to come in at any point, and if that Kyogre hits the field without when the Incineroar's not on the field, or when the Incineroar is on the field, you can just click a Water move, take care of the only counter Shedinja, and then the game's pretty much over at that point.
Exactly, and Hyppolite still has their Dynamax, am I correct?
Yes, I think so, because they would probably be able to want to Dynamax the Kyogre, but they switched it out straight away with the Shedinja. So yeah, that's definitely preserved, and going to have to break through that as well as the Shedinja.
Yeah, that's certainly something, a little trick that Hyppolite has up his sleeve at this point. The substitute will be KO'd, and Zacian once again back out onto the battlefield as Incineroar goes for the parting shot. So just going to be able to get down into that opposing Zacian that has just been exposed and is able to drop the attack by one stage here, allowing Hyppolite once again a little bit of ball positioning here. He's got his 4 Pokemon remaining, has a lot of potential options here for switching and pivoting just to allow that Shedinja to have that kind of luxury in the back where it doesn't have to worry so much. If the rest of Hyppolite's Pokemon are able to apply pressure, like we mentioned, that Kyogre can do so much damage here, and that's why it's coming back into the field. Also, the rain is gone. Let's reset that up a little bit, allow the Kyogre to have those turns of the rain to be able to deal big water-type damage. Just means Shedinja's going to have a great time towards this endgame. Incineroar as well going for the Flare Blitz. Now the rain's on the field. That's not what it wants to see. It goes down into that to Kyogre, does just a little bit of chip damage, and takes a bit of recoil as well. And of course, the Incineroar on Alex's side has activated its Citrus Berry, so it no longer has that as a kind of backup for regaining a little bit of HP from the Zacian, but it's going to need more than a Citrus Berry to survive against that Kyogre.
It definitely will. You've got a very safe switch in for Zacian into Incineroar for Hyppolite's side of the field, and Dynamax your Kyogre, and there is nothing Alex could do about that if Hyppolite decides to go for that. You can launch a Max Geyser very freely into the Incineroar slot. That will pick up a KO, whether that's the Incineroar or the Thunderous that would switch in. If you go for a Max Geyser into the Zacian, that could be caught into a substitute, and you could be using up a turn of your Dynamax for that. But at the same time, if the Zacian does go for a substitute, that would be an opportunity to just go for a Water Spout instead. So it's going to be the Incineroar switch in for Hyppolite's side of the field, get that Intimidate down on the opposing Zacian before any of the substitutes could have come out as well, and keep that Kyogre safe, so even a Play Rough that could have come out from the Zacian wouldn't be doing too much damage, and the Behemoth Blade would be the option, of course, because the substitute is on the Zacian, so probably not going to be even carrying the Play Rough, and Behemoth Blade would be the best option into this Dynamax Kyogre that is going on the offensive here. If it does go for the Max Geyser into the Incineroar slot, that is picking up a KO.
Yeah, honestly, really love that switch there, bringing in the Incineroar and being able to go for the Dynamax with the Kyogre here a little bit later into this game too, applying such formidable pressure with something like a Max Geyser. Zacian, I think, feeling that pressure and going for a Protect here on Alex's side, leaving that Incineroar very, very exposed to a Max Geyser. Kyogre has gone for that move choice and finds his mark straight down onto the Incineroar, just removing it from the field, meaning that Alex is going to be forced to bring that Thunderous back in here. I mean, this game too has been so diverse with kind of Hyppolite coming out very strong, making very commanding reads. I'm going straight on the offensive, dealing some big damage, switching in the Shedinja here and there, and now has kind of switched in the middle of that game. It was a little bit more defensive, a little bit more strategic, really thinking through what positioning he needs, and now it's switched right back to that offensive.
Yeah, it was a very killer turn one, effectively, using up one of the Dynamax moves of the Thunderous that was so necessary. You needed the Airstream to be able to deal with the Shedinja. You need the Lightning to be able to deal with this Dynamax Kyogre, and you don't have that option. The Incineroar's just to be able to fake out the Thunderous. You get to launch a Max Geyser into the opposing Thunderous as well, and then it's Zacian against the world.
Exactly. The Intimidate really paying off there as well. Sacred Sword doing not a lot to that opposing Incineroar, and Thunderous will be KO'd nice and quickly by this Max Geyser. Kyogre really in its formidable presence here, just having a great time being able to fire off these Max Geysers. And although Zacian, you know, normally doesn't mind taking water moves as much, I think taking a Max Geyser here followed up by something from the Incineroar is just going to be enough. And as you've mentioned previously, Jamie, we know that Shedinja is in the back, so Hyppolite's going to be able to close out this game.
Yeah, and even a Zacian waiting in the back as well would just be able to Behemoth Blade the Zacian. It's taken enough chip at this point that attack should be enough, and Alex knows that. And Hyppolite is going to take this second round 2-0.
Yeah, we saw the forfeit locked in there, and it's lovely to see our two players as well supporting each other. Little Shedinja doing really well. Oh, he just missed it on the stream, but he was waving the Shedinja in the camera to you guys, the viewers at home. So certainly a great Pokemon choice for him, and it has been showcased really well in this second round. Yeah,
well, Zacian and Kyogre is pretty much the matchup you want Shedinja into, because they classically can't hit the Shedinja at all. Kyogre can by technicality with a Max Hailstorm, but then you'd have to be hitting the opposing Pokemon. Then you always have to deal with something like an Ally Switch that can come out as well. So yeah, pretty much the perfect matchup for that Shedinja. Not opting to bring something like the Rillaboom that could have been able to go for the drum solos as well. That would have been pretty impactful in that match. Would have been able to do some good damage to any of the Pokemon, get the fake out pressure as well. Whimsicott, I liked what Alex was going for with the helping hand Max Lightning. That would have KO'd a Dynamax Kyogre.
Yes.
But it was not a Dynamax Kyogre. It was a Pokemon that was completely immune to the Max Lightning. So when that got launched off, Whimsicott became effectively useless, because it was there pretty much to KO this, or help to KO this Dynamax Kyogre, and then you can start to deal with the Shedinja waiting in the back, but then you just couldn't deal with the Kyogre at all.
Exactly. It was kind of rendered null and void when it wasn't able to do that supportive role for the Kyogre, and at the same time, yes, you kind of have the Tailwind options, but speed control didn't seem to be too much of a problem there for Alex. The Zacian was certainly being very speedy on the battlefield. You had the fake out support as well from the Incineroar, just unfortunately wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, so Hyppolite is going to be very comfortably able to take this game too. So very, very nice showing for that Shedinja there. So we will be cutting to a very short break and we'll be back very soon. Hello and welcome back to the 2022 Bilbao Special Event, and we are here with our round 2 winner, Hyppolite Bernard. That was a very dominant showing for that Shedinja.
Yeah, very dominant, but that was always in the two games. There was a very close turn one because I had to accept a lot of damage on my Kyogre before to trade the Thunderous. You can see that is a threat for my Shedinja as well. That I know I was hiding in the back, and then I had to get rid of the Incineroar as well. That is the second threat of their team for my Shedinja. So that was the two Pokemon I had to be careful of. And yeah, I mean Shedinja is here because Zacian can't hit it. Kyogre most of the time can't hit it, so I knew what I had to do to take the...
Yeah, it was very, very crucial to get KO in the Thunderous immediately, and then the Incineroar followed very quickly. Game 1 was effectively over before we even knew it was, because the Shedinja was just waiting in the back. And then that Game 2, very good switch into just waste a turn of Max Lightning as well. So what were you thinking when you saw that Whimsicott coming on the field?
I mean, I was like, why is there a Whimsicott on the field? And I was like, okay, if it's not for Happingen, I don't know what is this Whimsicott going to bring in the matchup. So I was like, okay, my opponent is probably going to try to kill my Kyogre on turn 1 with Happingen plus Mike Lightning. So I just bring Shedinja in, and whatever it's like, if I bring Shedinja, it's some max move that deals no damage. It's still I lose in this case my Focus Sash if it reads with Airstream. So the trade was more for me, even if he did the correct play. So I think it still was a good play anyway.
Yeah, the Thunderous could have done a lot of damage, and we can actually see how much damage it actually did throughout this game. So it was wasting a turn of the Dynamax move. We only have the Game 2 stats, I'm afraid, but this is the direct damage that was dealt throughout that match. And you can see Dynamax Thunderous wants to be doing a lot of damage and only managed to do 60% of damage to a Pokemon. That was completely wasted with that first turn of the Max Lightning. So yeah, very, very good switch in for that Shedinja. Being able to catch that Max Lightning, all the damage was pretty much gone at that point. So very, very nice showing.
Yeah, really don't have much to add. I mean, Shedinja did all the work on its own, so...
Yeah, it didn't have to do any damage itself. It just had to be there and just be pesky as it always is. So a very, very strong showing for this round 2. So congratulations on going 2-0, and we'll hope to see you keep that momentum going into these future rounds. So that's going to be it for us from this round 2.